when the mountains move. Fear is losing ground to our hope in you. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Freedom conquered, all our chains undone. Sin defeated, Jesus has overcome. Mercy triumphed when the third day dawned. Darkness was denied when the storm was gone. Sing it out. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Sing nothing. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done.
Hi everyone, I'm Adele and I am so excited to be here with you today. Welcome to Quest Kids TV. It's been an incredible month around here so far. We've been discovering how creative God is and seeing how He made us to be creative too. Creativity is imagining what you could do because you're made in God's image. It's pretty great to know that we're made in God's image because, well, God is great. Do you remember our memory verse for this month, Psalm 145:3? It goes like this: Lord, you are great. You are really worthy of praise. No one can completely understand how great you are. And this verse is so true. It's impossible for us to understand how truly great God is. You might say that He's indescribable. One way that we can clearly see God's greatness is in His creation. He has made some pretty amazing things. Take something simple, like salt, for example. You probably don't think much about this simple ingredient except that you sprinkle it on your eggs or your popcorn. But salt plays a huge role in the natural world. For example, have you ever heard of the Dead Sea? There is a huge amount of salt in this sea, which actually is near where Jesus lived when He was here on earth. The salt in this water has caused some super cool formations. Not only that, but there is so much salt in this particular sea that you can't even sink if you're in the water. Isn't that crazy? Of course, other than all those really cool things salt can do, let's be honest, it also tastes really good. There might not be anything better in life than a salty pretzel. Last week, we talked about how Jesus was teaching and performing miracles. People were starting to hear about Jesus and all the amazing things he was doing, so everywhere he went, large crowds would follow. Now it's time to watch a video where we can learn all about God's creativity.
The Bible. It's 66 books of history, stories, letters, and poetry that fit together to form God's one big story. The epic adventure of how he created us and loves us so much that he made a way to rescue us. As we travel through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we discover people who met God and found their lives changed forever. Now, for an amazing story, inspired by the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 13 through 16.
Keisha Jones tied the strings of a large white apron carefully behind her back. She glanced at awe at the gleaming silver countertops and appliances in the kitchen of a cupcakery where her brother Robert worked.
This is amazing.
Yeah, pretty great Myers letting us use the mixer and stove.
Pretty great, you're helping me.
Keisha offered to bake cookies to raise funds for the new marching band uniforms. Even better, she convinced Robert to help her. He clipped the smudge recipe page over the counter.
Brown butter and toffee chocolate chip cookies? Sounds weird.
Trust me, they are the bomb. Robert worked evenings in a bakery for 3 years, so Keisha had to admit, he probably did know. She looked over the recipe.
2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of salt?
Actually, we're quadrupling the recipe, so that's 4 teaspoons of salt. Robert tossed Keisha a set of measuring spoons.
Cookies are supposed to be sweet. Won't the salt ruin them?
Nope, salt actually brings out the flavors.
What does that even mean?
You want to test it out? Fine. I'll make a batch with salt. You make one without.
You're on.
The siblings worked quickly as Robert showed Keisha how to mix dry ingredients and wet ingredients separately.
What do we do now?
Add the dry ingredients into the wet mix on low speed. Slowly, or you will make a flour storm all over this kitchen.
I knew that.
As Keisha worked, though, she began to hear another sound over the mixer.
Wow, rain's really coming down.
Yeah, and this is such an old building that every time it storms, the power goes out.
I can't see a thing.
Robert fumbled with his phone until the flashlight came on. It always comes back on pretty fast. We can wait it out. Robert settled down on the floor, back against the cabinets. Keisha sighed and sat down too. She checked her phone.
My battery's dying. Entertain me.
What? You can't live without your phone?
I don't know. Tell me a story.
I was just thinking of one. About salt.
Really?
One that Jesus told.
Ooh, that one. Sermon on the Mount.
Well, it fits. You know, the cookies.
Fine. Read it to me, preacher man.
It's in Matthew.
I know that.
Robert settled in with his Bible app. Jesus saw the crowds, so he went up on a mountainside and sat down. Then he began to teach. And pretty quick he gets into this part. You are the salt of the earth.
That's it?
Well, no. I mean, then Jesus talks about throwing out the salt if it loses its saltiness.
How do you even know if you're salty?
I think it's like the cookies. Salt makes things taste better. And people who follow Jesus can make life taste better.
Like chocolate chip cookies.
Robert punched her lightly in the shoulder. You know what I mean. When we share God's story, we bring hope to others. We help to fill their lives with kindness and joy and peace. All that good stuff.
Okay, I get it. Salt, good. There's something about light too, right?
Yep. Jesus says, you are the light of the world. People do not light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand. Then it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine so others can see it. Then they will see the good things you do, and they will bring glory to your Father who is in heaven. Keisha shifted, trying to get comfortable on the hard floor.
So when we follow Jesus,
By showing God's love to others.
when we do that, others can see God better and what to do.
Like a bright light. Yikes! Robert leapt up to try to stop the mixer as the power came on. Keisha stood and stretched, blinking.
Like a bright light. You planned that, huh?
Of course.
Well played. Hey, I'm gonna put salt in my batch of cookies after all.
Well played. As Keisha measured the salt, she smiled. The cookies would have came out great, but she had some thinking to do about ways she can become salt and light herself.
There is no limit to God's creativity. The same God who made the sun and the stars and everything we can see in the universe also made you. He made you in His image, and He made you for a reason, so He can have a relationship with you. He wants to know you, and He wants for you to know Him, and He feels that way about everyone. He made everyone, and He wants a relationship with everyone. Remember, God created everything. There was darkness, and then God created light. Just like the stars point to a creator, your life can point others to God's story too. You can show what a difference God has made in your life by the way you act every day. You can act in a way that shines His light by sharing His love with others. And if they wonder where that kindness and goodness comes from, you can tell them that every good and creative thing in you comes from God. God created you to share His story. He made you in His image, and He made you good at something. So whatever your gift or talent is, use it well. Give it everything you've got. That's a great way to honor God. See, God made us to share His story with our words and our actions and in all kinds of creative ways. He made everyone because He wants them to know the amazing story of how much He loves us, so much that He sent His own Son, Jesus, to be our Savior. It's the greatest story ever, and He made us to share it. This week, I want you to think about this question. What does it look like for you to be salt and light? Remember, we show God's love with our actions, not just words. And there's no limit to the ways you can share His love with others. You can use the creativity God gave you to love others and give them a glimpse of how good He is. Maybe you could invite a friend to church, or you could share some snacks with them and tell them what we talked about in today's story. Maybe you can even ask someone how you can pray for them. There are limitless ways to share God's story and shine His light. So be thinking and praying about how you can use your gifts to show God's love to others. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Mary Adele. Have you ever thought about what God looks like? When I think about what God looks like, I just imagine that He's perfect. When you do this activity with your family, I want you to have a lot of fun with it. Go around the house and find all the foods that are super salty in your house. Remember, the difference between what we eat is that we lose the saltiness eventually, but we never lose the presence of Jesus in our life. Have fun with your family this week, and we will all see you guys next week.